We import PyTorch. We check what PyTorch version we are using. We are using 0.2.0_4. We start by generating a PyTorch tensor that's 3 by 3 by 3 using the PyTorch random function. We can check the type of this variable by using the type functionality. We see that it is a float tensor. To convert this float tensor to a double, define the variable double_x equals x dot double, open close print. We can check the type, and we see that whereas before this PyTorch tensor was a float tensor, we now have a PyTorch tensor that is a double tensor. We can convert it back. We define a variable float_x and say double_x dot float, open parentheses, close parentheses, and so we're casting this double tensor back to a floating tensor. This time we'll print the floating PyTorch tensor. Next we define a float_10_x variable, which is equal to float_x times 10. We print this new variable. And if we scroll back up, we can see the first number was 0.6096, and now the first number is 6.0964. So everything has been multiplied by 10, and we can see that it is a float tensor. So by multiplying it by the integer 10, it didn't change the fact that it was still a PyTorch float tensor. Next, we're going to define a variable int_10_x, and we're going to cast our float tensor of 10x into integers. We print this new variable, and we see that it is indeed integers. 6 to 8 is the first row, and here we can see that it was 6.09, 2.04, 8.3. So 6, 2, and 8. So now we have a PyTorch int tensor. The last thing we do is we cast this int tensor back to a float. So we define a variable float after int 10x equal to int_10_x dot float, and we print this new variable, and we see that it is now a PyTorch float tensor. The one thing to notice, however, is 6 to 8. When we cast or converted the int tensor back to a float tensor, it had not saved anywhere what numbers were past the decimal point. So when you are casting or converting between PyTorch tensor types, it's always important to remember what kind of precision you are losing when you are doing this type of conversion.